Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition. It is March 19th, 1942, in our play-by-email game against XTRG, and we are continuing to witness the Japanese offensive in the South Pacific. You can see they're extending their presence further west on the island of New Britain. You can see that they are extending their presence on the island of New Guinea as well. In terms of today's fight, I guess we'll see what happens today, but you can see we're starting off with some Dutch submarines, or at least one of them, firing some torpedoes at Japanese destroyers. I would question that choice of target, but you can see that's what they're doing here, firing torpedoes off that direction. It does look like these cargo ships here, or these, I don't know if they're cargo ships, but we saw 3 task forces that were right around here last turn. Looks like they are moving north toward Bandar Jasmine, so I'm not 100% sure that this is a landing force for Java. It could be. He could be sort of hugging the coast in the north and trying to get in around us or something to that effect. But so far, it doesn't look like they're heading southwest toward Semarang. Now, again, he could be taking a wide berth, but in any event, if he's up here in the night phase, he's clearly not going to be down to Semarang this turn. So that's good news for us. The Dutch sub did take 2 depth charge hits. We'll have to take a look at her and see how she fares after that. No Stein, no Mark 14 failure there at least. Although obviously the torpedoes did miss their target. I would like to imagine that my submarine skippers can get in a little bit closer to whatever they're shooting at and not waste torpedoes on destroyers. I'd like to at least see them firing at light cruisers or heavy cruisers if they're around. I'd rather they shoot at transports, but no one thinks shooting at transports is sexy, I guess. Meanwhile, we're moving into the AM phase here and getting some of our patrol reports. You can see we've got some recon sorties flying over New Caledonia and some of the islands near Espirito Santos. I'm going to talk a little bit today about some command changes that I've made. I don't remember who I replaced, but I do remember some of the units that I put in some better commanders. They did cost a little bit in the way of political points. Nothing huge. I think I spent like 35 political points on them. So they will slow my ability to free up some new American units, but I do think it's going to be important in places like Burma to make sure that we're ship hull shaming. Transports can be sexy too, to help our fight in Burma. So we'll take a look at that for a second. Yeah, I guess co. All right, so Japanese dive bombers here over Bataan. They're going to continue hammering home there. You can see some Japanese Sonias coming in here. It looks like we might have destroyed 2 with flak, so that's nice. 3 raids of Sonias, 1 of 30, 2 of 9. So relatively coordinated. I don't have any fighters over that way. Meanwhile, we have put our Chinese bombers to work here. So the Japanese drove us out of the hex to the east of Guilin last turn. So I'm guessing he's marching west to try and close the distance and get into Guilin. I'm trying to buy a little bit of time for our troops to concentrate at that base so that he doesn't have any chance of ejecting me there before all my reinforcements can arrive. And so what that means I do need to do is I need to go ahead and I need to bomb his troops, because what I can hope to do with bombing these troops is there's a chance I can force them into maneuver formation. So if they're in maneuver formation and I bomb them, there's a chance they will switch over into combat formation, which will slow their movement down there. So you can see 2 bombing strikes, 1 of 8 bombers, 1 of 15, did a little bit of damage, looked like 2 infantry squads disabled, some 20 or so casualties. 2 Japanese divisions were attacked there. So hopefully that switched them over into combat, although I'm not sure to what extent you have to do to get them to switch to combat. In any event, 23 bombers hitting those Japanese troops and doing a little bit of damage. The Japanese didn't have any combat air patrol over those bases, and so it is... It's not a chance it forces to combat mode. So not enough strikes there by the SB3s, Co. You know, I can hope, okay? That's the goal. I don't know what you have to do to force them into combat, but I know that the Japanese have forced my troops in China into combat with bombing raids before. 23 bombers isn't nothing. It would scare me out of a column formation. In any event, we're just trying to slow them down. Yeah, big. It would be nice if I could give him a priority target. Unfortunately, I cannot. Oh, just bombing is enough. So I already did it. Okay. Well, and I'm guessing he'll have some escorts over them tomorrow. So if I try again, we'll be going up against Japanese fighters, which I don't really want to do. So I probably won't bomb again. Usually you got to be a little bit concerned. Oh, Japanese bombardment. No deliberate, just a bombardment attack at Singapore. This is a pretty quiet turn. Wow. Not a lot happened here. Usually the obviously the rule in China for the Chinese is you want to not do a lot of bombing raids because it chews through a lot of supply real fast. But because our supply in China has gone up 60,000 points since the game started, or at least since turn 32, I feel relatively confident that a handful of bombing raids won't hurt our supply situation too much. And maybe it'll make XTRG think that it is hurting our supply situation. In any event, that bombardment was good for the Japanese. 122 casualties inflicted, 2 guns destroyed, 1 vehicle destroyed, 2 engineers destroyed, and a couple of squads disabled. Our counter-battery fire did destroy 1 of his vehicles, though, and we did inflict a few casualties, so not entirely worthless on our troops' end. You can see that the defenders have 548 assault value, the attackers have 2,400. That's a pretty substantial advantage for him. Now, with our level 2 forts, I would imagine if he were to attack again, he'd get slightly better than 2 to 1. If the die roll goes in our favor, also because this is urban light, we get a little bit more bonus. So there's a chance it might be 1 to 1. If it's 1 to 1, that's good because it means the fort will just fall from 2 to 1. If it's like 3, 4, 5 to 1 odds, there's a chance he could take the base in one fell swoop, but I don't imagine he'll be there quite yet. So hopefully we're holding out for at least 2 or 3 more turns. I said 2 days ago I thought we'd hold out 2 to 3 more days. We've held out 2 days. 3 days is a minimum because obviously the next turn is tomorrow. So hopefully we can continue to stymie him there. Meanwhile, the Japanese are launching a deliberate attack at Port Moresby. We'll see if we're able to hold out here. His engineers aren't in great shape, but his 56th Division is in relatively good shape. Our defenders are not, but we have been flying in supplies from the continent in Australia, so maybe that's... Hey, good result there. Moresby held. So Moresby held, odds of 1 to 2. He did a deliberate attack there. It looks like the defenders are being penalized or getting bonuses for terrain, penalized for preparation, experience, and supply. The supply is low, but it's not non-existent. He lost 673 troops, 1 squad destroyed, 49 disabled. We did lose 10 squads destroyed, so substantially more permanently lost than him, but only 12 disabled. So at the end of the day, we're actually relatively in better shape than he was. He also suffered 18 engineers either destroyed or disabled, 673 casualties versus 245 on our end. Our troops managed to hold out. They didn't even lose a fort level they don't have because it's fort level 0, so they kept the 1 to 2, kept the fort level 0. But that was a good result for us. So I'm pleased with that, and hopefully that delays his taking of Moresby even longer. Meanwhile, a Japanese deliberate attack at Kuching. You can see he brought in another Naval Guard unit here to try and reduce this base down. I don't think we have any supply for our defenders there. So you can see he did manage to get 2 to 1 assault odds. He's been struggling here for a while, but he got 2 to 1 assault odds. Japanese reduced the fortifications to level 1. 220 Allied casualties versus 64 Japanese. 4 squads destroyed. Those guys are going to fall soon, but they've done their job. Probably can't save Moresby Jack Tank. I've kind of given up on trying. He's got G3M and G4M Nels around that are going to interdict any shipping that we try to send to Moresby. Even if we tried to send in reinforcements, it wouldn't be a good result for us. But if we can hold out for another attack or 2, then we can chew up some supplies, and those are good results for us. Unknown 666666666. Thank you very much for the follow. It's okay, Alexander. I can bomb Moresby with my B-17s out of Charlestowns or Charterstowns, and I can make that airbase something he's not going to be using for a month or so, hopefully. So I'll probably have a 1-day turnaround for XTRG, which will be nice to try and keep our pace going here. First things first, we'll take a look at Singapore. Troops are not in great shape, as you said, Ko. But we do have 2 divisions that are still in reasonably good shape. The 11th and 9th Indian divisions here are both in reasonably good shape. No disruption, no fatigue. They do have a fair amount of disabled squads, but that one still has 199 infantry squads. This one still has 183. Again, he heavily outnumbers us, but the hope is that the forts here will help us hang on for a little bit longer. We are at level 2 forts. If he continues to launch bombardment attacks, we might get this fort level back up to 3, which would be great and might help us hold for a little bit longer. Meanwhile, I did do one thing here. Because Singapore is going to be falling soon, we are still trying to pull out the SSV Brigade elements of the SSV brigade. I couldn't really find a brigade that was like a good brigade to pull out. We pulled out the 5th 14th Punjab Battalion, but there's still a couple of motorized support. I can't fit motorized support on my transport aircraft, so it's kind of going to be stuck there until it goes away. But I didn't really have a lot of other like units that were worth trying to pull out. I mean, the 22nd Australian Brigade might be worth it, but I didn't want to spend 400 political points to change its headquarters, and that was the only way to get it out. The same for the 22nd and the 27th Australian Brigades would be great units, but they're both restricted, tied to restricted HQs. So the ability to pull them out would require me to spend a lot of political points that I don't really want to do. The SSV brigade, meanwhile, is not a great brigade to pull out because it has Malaysian infantry squads, and the problem with those is you don't really get any replacements because Malaya falls to the Japanese, but you do still get troops that you can use in different places in Burma. So my thought is I can use them to act as like a garrison at at one of these bases here, maybe Mandalay or maybe somewhere else, that'll free up additional troops to move forward to the front if I can pull them out. Additionally, they do have a fair amount of squads. So if I get the SSV brigade, I've got 4 squads that I've already pulled out to Sabang. I also have more squads I'm pulling into Medan. And so we've got, over 20 infantry squads. There's still 20 infantry squads here. So maybe I throw them into Port Blair and they're part of our counterattack against the Japanese paratroopers there, or something to that effect. We'll see. But 20 infantry squads are still 20 infantry squads, and they will help even if I don't have the ability to really take any attrition damage with them. I mean, frankly, the Commonwealth troops, you don't get a lot of replacements anyway, so you don't. There's not a lot of attrition damage you can take with British infantry squads either. Yeah, it's interesting that the SSV is free from a headquarters perspective, but it is what it is. I don't think... Let's see here. They're tied to the... what are they tied to? Where is the SSV? I don't even... They're tied to the 3rd Indian Corps, which the 3rd Indian Corps is free. The 11th and 9th Divisions would also be free, but I'm not going to pull them out because that would basically, if I start to reduce the strength of my only effective remaining large units, then it would basically just ensure that Singapore falls the next time we are attacked there. I did make one other change. I spent 10 political points to transfer the 24th New Zealand Pioneer Company to the Burma Corps, and so I'm going to try and get this unit out of Singapore before it falls. I'm not going to be able to take the engineering vehicles with me, but that's okay. I can replace those. That's just a generic pool. I'm going to try and get the engineers and the support folks out, though, to Singapore. So the intent there is to get those 12 engineers and 13 squads, or I guess 11 engineers and 13 support squads out to Rangoon so that we can get more engineers in Burma, because one thing I noticed is I did move my divisions south of Pegu here. They're in good defensive terrain. It's WD, which WD terrain is, if we go up here, it is forest terrain, which is ×2 defensive value. But the problem is they're not building any forts, and I believe the reason they're not building any forts here is they don't have any engineers, or they have very minimal engineers. The 46th Indian Brigade, you can see here, has 6 engineers. The 18th British Infantry Division has they do have 30 engineers, so they've got a decent number of engineers in the units, but Burma itself doesn't have really much in the way of engineers, and so I'm trying to get a few more engineers into Burma so that we can use those to assist our troops in digging in. Not sure why these guys are still marked as dash, maybe because I just moved them out of move formation this turn, but I would like to get them digging in so they can get some fort levels here in good defensive terrain on the opposite side of a river from Mulman, where he doesn't really have an easy time flanking them. He could try and move the troops up here toward Pegu, north of Pegu, and then try and hop into our rear, but he'd have no real line of supply, so that seems unlikely that he would use Chiang Ma to try and get in behind us. Even if he did, we'd have plenty of time with good roadways to fall back, or to fall on him where he's got bad supplies. I need to move an HQ unit to that hex in Burma. Do I need to move an HQ unit? So I've got the Burma Corps headquarters, which they're both attached to, or these divisions down here are attached to. Most of them, anyway. The British division is attached to the 3rd Indian Corps or something like that. But I would think the Burma Corps is able to influence it. It should have a command radius that reaches them. So I'm not sure. I mean, I was debating moving the Burma HQ, but the Burma HQ is the headquarter for most of the units in all of Burma. So I think this green circle represents its command radius, which would allow it to exercise command over the 1st Burma Division and the 46th Infantry Division of the Indian Corps. But I'm not sure. The 18th British Division is assigned to the 3rd Indian Corps, but I don't want to spend 1,600 points to try and change it. I actually, because it's under ABDA, I could change it to the Burma Corps substantially cheaper, but it would still cost like 400 political points to do that. They'll need the support squads. Yeah. Do they have support? All right, these guys are short on support. They're 12 short. These guys are 200 short. Okay. The 1st Burma has enough support of its own. So we do need about 200 more support squads. So we could do that with the Burma Corps, or not 200, but we could get about 100 more in there with the Burma Corps. We could also, ABDA has support as well. So, I mean, we could, I'll look into that. I'll probably do that offline. But anyway, so we're trying to pull the 24th New Zealand out. Meanwhile, the Felix Rosal, a free French troop transport, has arrived at Sabang and is going to load up the remaining elements of the 5th 14th Punjab battalion that is currently in Sabang. So all of those elements of the unit did arrive at Sabang via rail. So there's 648 load cost currently there. It's 6 active infantry squads and then 25 infantry sections currently there, as well as 23 support. You can see here the TOE is more, so there's supporting equipment that hopefully we'll be able to replenish. But this is another good unit of 36 Indian squads or so that we can pull back to Rangoon that again can free up other units to move them toward other bases or whatnot. Or potentially even disbanding them if we can do that in the Indian theater and getting those units into the pool. Meanwhile, we also are still trying to pull what's left of the 224 group out of Sabang. There's only 12 load cost. It's only 1 support left in this base. So we've got 1 Catalina group in Rangoon pulling these guys out. The 5th 14th will continue loading on this transport here. And there's no enemy recon over these guys in Sabang. There's no detection here. So that's good for us. We've set them only to pull troops, not to load supplies. So they should actually load up and be out at sea within 1 turn. So that should minimize the risk. Obviously, they still could get picked up on their way into Rangoon, but we'll see what happens. We also have 3 more troop transports, the Metang, the Kapong, and the Sin Ken Sen. All on their way into Sabang as well. The hope is that we can get more elements of the SSV out, and we could potentially transport them, if it's safe enough, via troop transport. We've already got 528 load cost out to Medan, and then we've also got, I think, like 144 of them up into Sabang. So we've already got about 600 assault value of those troops of the SSV brigade out. We also need to pull out the 2nd Loyal Battalion here. These guys have British infantry squads that we're trying to get out as well. Okay, so that's all going on. One other thing I did want to call out that I just noticed. So we have a fair number. It's over 10 American PBY-4 Catalinas at Rangoon. They actually have the range to reach troops in Bataan. So we could either dump a little bit of extra supply into Bataan from Rangoon, or we could try and pull some American units out of Bataan before that falls eventually. So that is an option as long as we continue to hold Rangoon. Now, we can't pull out any of the Filipino Army infantry divisions. Those guys are all locked to Rangoon or to Bataan. But the 4th U.S. Marine Regiment, which is a great unit here, good experience. I don't know if that's a good commander or not. Mediocre commander. But we could, in theory, unlock these guys from that headquarters, and we could try and pull them out of the Philippines. Not sure it's a good idea. It would cost a fair amount of political points that I'm not sure I really want to do. But we could get some high-quality U.S. troops into Burma to try and do that, if we elect to do that. I'm not going to do it now. All my transport aircraft are really focused in on pulling out the New Zealanders in Singapore and then pulling out some of these other troops here at Sabang and Medan. But once this sort of resolves itself, or once Singapore falls, we'll consider using some US PBYs to pull them out of Bataan. I don't know if it matters, Biggs. So I've been flying transports into Singapore and pulling troops out for like a week plus, and we haven't really lost any aircraft to enemy fighters. I'm guessing that's because he's just been flying bombing raids over Singapore. I don't know if any of that changes if he flies CAP or other things like that. It's certainly possible. But he's not flying CAP over Bataan either. He's just flying dive bomber strikes over Bataan. So I'm not sure if it matters if we fly any, if we do have any protection. So to answer your question, they'd be sitting ducks. I'm not sure how closely the game models the flight routes. You'd think the Japanese would be like, why are all these American planes flying over Thailand and over Vietnam and whatnot? Maybe we should shoot them down. But I don't think the game works that way. I think it's just interdiction at the final destination, which is a flaw. But there's plenty of other flaws in this game, especially in the land combat mode. So I don't know how many I'd recover from Bataan. It really depends on how long I have and what we're trying to pull out. You can only pull out units that have a load cost of 5 or less, unless they're infantry squads. So, like, if I tried to pull out the 31st Infantry Regiment, for example, I could pull out the 90 U.S. infantry squads here if I changed their headquarters, which again would be expensive to do. I could also probably pull out the light machine gun units. I'm not sure if I could pull the heavy machine gun units out. Definitely would not be able to pull out the 37mm anti-tank guns. The mortars might be dicey. The support I can pull out, but not the motorized support. So you can pull out parts of units, but unlikely you can pull the whole thing out. Honestly, I'm not even sure I want to do that. It's just saying something hypothetically I could do, but I can think of a lot better uses than spending 400 points on getting rid of, spending a third of my available political points on a unit that I can only pull fragments out, and it's going to take the better part of like 2 weeks probably to pull those units out with the units at hand. Honestly, there's a lot better uses for my PBYs than that. It's an interesting thought, but I'm not sure it's really worth doing it. Okay. Well, they probably had to figure it out in War in the West, right? The interdiction, because it also models the strategic bombing campaign. I can reach it because when you do troop transports, it assumes a refuel on the other end. So I think it's 36. So as long as the max range of your air, you essentially can do pickup troops at 1/2 your maximum range. So I can do troop transports up to 38 hexes away with a PBY-4 Catalina. This is a PBY-4, right? Yeah, PBY-4. So because it's up to less than half the maximum range, that's like ferry range because it's going to assume they're going to resupply in Bataan. It's not a matter of actual range. It's a matter of maximum range. So, for example, let's just do this for a second. If I go ahead and click here, you can see I can do that. And it's saying, hey, do you want to pick up the Caveat USN Base Force? 36, which is less than 1/2 the maximum range. Ferry range is different. So the maximum range that you see on this screen here, the maximum range you see here is the extended radius the plane can fly if it has to fly out and fly back. The 37 range is if you fly out, refuel on the other end of that flight, and then fly back. Yeah, it's 1/2 of maximum range. You would think that ferry range would actually be the maximum range. It's a good point. I don't know why it works the way it does. I just know that's how it works. So you'd think, in theory, 76 would be the range, right? If the maximum range is 76 that you can fly one way, why can't you do that and then refuel? I don't know the answer to that. Okay. Meanwhile, we are getting close to having to withdraw some of our aircraft that are in Rangoon. So we've got some Hurricanes that are coming up from withdraw dates soon. The 605, not that squadron. The 242 squadron has to be withdrawn by April 10th. I can still withdraw it now, get the planes in the pool, and get the pilots in the pool. I tested it out, but it does have to be withdrawn soon. I don't want to withdraw them 20 days early, though, 25 days early. As much as it would be nice to get the 20 political points, the 16 fighters in Rangoon, especially if a battle's going to start there when Singapore falls, I think are going to be more useful. And then once the aircraft are destroyed, then we'll withdraw and salvage what pilots we have left, and we'll do it at that time. But I'm not going to withdraw them early just because it's not... The 32 Hurricanes that are going to have to pull out are worth more than the 40 or so political points I'll get if I withdraw them early. Okay. So that's the situation there. We looked at Sabang. We looked at Singapore. We looked at Rangoon. I'm trying to ferry some supplies into Ambon, but I don't feel like I'm making a lot of progress, so I must not be ferrying in enough to cover my expenses from a supply perspective. The Sparrow Battalion's sitting at 69 supply, which is a little bit less than one half of what it needs to be considered in supply. So we'll see if he tries to attack there. He's got like a brigade, an understrength brigade here at Ambon that he hasn't really done much with. The troops there are pretty beat up. The port damage is 100. The service damage is 100. The runway damage is not. The engineers are slowly repairing it as I send in supplies, so maybe that's why we're not getting up enough supply. Meanwhile, Darwin's starting to get a little bit low on supply. It's only got about 6,000 supply. It doesn't have a good way to transport supply through from mainland, not mainland, but from the sort of the industrial portions of Australia. So I am going to load up a cargo task force here of a couple of, not these guys, of a couple of light transports here somewhere. Yeah, AKLs. So this is more than I'm going to send. I'll probably split this convoy in half and send some of them to another destination. And then what I may do is I may figure out how I provide cover to these guys, because they'll definitely be in range of Japanese bombers on Timor if he's got them. But Darwin could use a little bit of extra supply. So if I can throw another 7,000-8,000 into Darwin, that's definitely the objective. Meanwhile, I have been pulling out elements of the Southeastern Borneo KNIL Battalion via, again, more American PBYs flying out of Batavia. So we've pulled out I think maybe half of the infantry squads here, of the KNIL squads, and we've pulled them back to Batavia where they're recovering. So a lot of them were disabled, but if we go down here and we look at the Southeast Battalion, you can see we pulled out 10 rifle squads, and they're all active. None of them are disabled anymore, and that's because we've got such a good supply situation with 60,000 plus in Batavia, and so they've been resting and replenishing there. We're continuing to work on pulling some of them out, but it's taking a little bit of time. But since they are technically on, well, I don't even know if they're on water, but somehow the PBYs can land there. Maybe there's a lake. I don't know. One other thing worth calling out, I don't think I did it in time to, if his invasion task force is already at sea up near Bandar Jasmine, then we're kind of screwed. But if it's not, if we've got a few more days before the landings, we did upgrade some of our old decrepit Dutch bombers to DB-7Bs, which, in case you're wondering what that is, those are, I think, A-20s. They look like A-20s, so good American medium bombers here. The bombers hold 4 250-kilogram bombs. They're good at low altitude, and they've got a lot of machine guns, so these guys are going to be good against naval strikes. Some of the crews even have 45% bombing accuracy. Not all of them. The other guys are at 35%. But we've got 18 of these good American A-20s, and then we've also got 9 American B-25Cs. They're piloted by Dutch crews, but they're B-25Cs here. Unfortunately, because I just upgraded them, it is going to take a little bit of time to get their planes ready for service. You know, it's going to take like a week. So if we don't have a week, which I don't think we will, he'll probably get his troops ashore without any real interference from my bombers. But you know, who knows? Maybe if this invasion force is going to take 2 or 3 days, maybe they're going to resupply at Bandar Jasmine, then take 2 more days. I might have a handful of bombers that actually have a chance of hitting his ships that I can send after him. I guess we'll see. In any event, we could probably use them somewhat effectively against resupply convoys that he may have to send in. And we do have 24 modern fighters at Batavia as well that are all ready. We've got 12 P-40E Warhawks, and we've got 12 Hurricane 2B tropes with decent crews. The crews here have, generally speaking, about 45-plus air skill. Their experience levels are all almost to 50, so they're not good crews, but they're not bad. They're definitely not green per se. The Hurricane pilot or the P-40 pilots are better. We also may potentially, depending on if we continue to get some replenishments of these aircraft, be able to upgrade a 3rd squadron with these aircraft. Currently, they're sitting with 3 Buffaloes, but if we can get the Warhawks up for another 6 or 7 days, we can probably get like another squadron of Warhawks or Hurricanes, depending on if this resupply continues, which I think it does. So we could have up to 36 modern fighters. Not anywhere near enough to knock out the Japanese Air Force, but enough to catch them off guard or maybe escort some bombers as they go in. Oh, one other thing I did want to show you guys. I did make some changes to some of my commanders. So, where is it? Is it the 1st Burma Division? No, I changed that guy last turn. Nope, over here. So, the Burma Corps, we replaced our commander with a new guy. So, I took Alex Christensen is the new commanding general. He's a lieutenant general. I think he replaced Donald McLeod, who was the previous commander of the Burma Corps. You can see he was a 45 leadership, 45 inspiration, 40 land, and only 45 administration. And a 40 aggression. So we replaced him with Lieutenant General Alex Christensen, who is a 72 aggression, 68 administration, 61 inspiration, 63 leadership. This is literally our best general officer, in my opinion. We have William Slim is a better administrator. He's more aggressive. I guess Slim is better in all cases. That would make Alex Christensen our second best because he's a better leader than Robert Castles, and he is a better has a better land trait than Castles, and he's more aggressive than Castles, although Castles has a slight edge in administration. In any event, he's a very good, very promising, aggressive commander in charge of the Burma HQ, hoping that administration skill is going to stand him in good stead and make all the troops under him more effective fighters when the Burma campaign does start. In theory, it might help the Viper force and the other units on Port Blair as well, although they may be outside of his command radius. Also, only one of the units there is attached to him. So we did replace him, and then I think we replaced one other guy. Might have been the commander of this Indian division. I know we replaced him at some point with Major General Charles Harvey. We were trying to balance administration skill against aggression and then still land combat. So this guy is really good at land combat, 72. Can't remember if it was last turn or this one. I am aware of who Slim is, yes. But at least in terms of this game's stats. Okay, so a couple other things going on. I am going to be doing some submarine sweeps, anti-submarine sweeps with some mine sweepers here. We're going to be launching some patrol zones in here in the Bass Strait. We're also setting up some destroyers and anti-submarine warfare operations. So we've got a 3-destroyer task force that's going to be doing some ASW operations off of Sydney. We've got 2 destroyers that are going to be doing some anti-submarine operations off Brisbane. And then we've got some AMs that are also going to be heading south to Brisbane to do some anti-submarine warfare operations. And we're pulling out some AMs or minesweepers out of Cairns, and we're setting them down towards Sydney as well. So we are working on getting some ASW work up and going. Additionally, I am going to be sending some troops into Lord Howe Island. So Norfolk Island seems like the most vulnerable, but it's not a super useful base. It can have a level 3 airfield, but it has no port to bring in the supplies. So it's not a very efficient base to stack up large scale, because everything you bring in either has to be brought in via air transport or over the beach, which is very inefficient. Lord Howe Island would be a much better base because it has a level 1 port already built, so you can at least bring in light transports, so you can bring like 6,000 tonners, coastal merchants, other things like that, and it can support up to a level 3 airfield. So not ideal for like large-scale bombing raids, but certainly for patrols or harassment or fighters or other things like that that don't eat a lot of supply. I already have a battalion of infantry on Norfolk Island, and they're working on fortifying there very slowly. They probably won't hold out versus any real Japanese landing there, but at least he can't land paratroopers there to take it. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load up an American Combat Infantry Regiment here, the 34th Combat Engineer Infantry Regiment, and we're going to move them to Lord Howe Island. A couple of reasons we're moving them to Lord Howe. One, they're just barely outside torpedo range of Nomaya, so the Japanese can't effectively shut Lord Howe down. They can shut down Norfolk Island, which is only 10 hexes away. So in the event that the Japanese land in Australia, I can quickly send transports to Howe to bring him back to Australia so that we can rail him up to deal with the enemy landings. In the event that the Japanese want a quick, easy conquest and they see that there's troops on Norfolk, they may go for Lord Howe. Yes, it's within somewhat close range of the Australian mainland, but only like medium bombers like Blenheims or B-25s or whatnot can hit Lord Howe from Australia. Light bombers or torpedo bombers or dive bombers can't, and Blenheims can only do it at extended range. So it's far enough off Australia to be somewhat vulnerable to a landing, while it's close enough to be a good spot for medium bombers like the Nell and the Betty to be based out of as well. So in any event, it's an exposed position between New Zealand and Australia that he could move into and take. So I'm going to put some troops there. I might move the engineers to Australia instead. The other alternative that I was looking at that I think will make more sense is to form up the Kanga Force Battalion, which is a good paratrooper unit of Australian troops. You can see here they've got 9 commando parasections. They're our best troops, I think. And then I think we've got another company here. The 6th company also has 9. And then we've got the 3rd company, which is on its way to Sydney currently, which also has 9. So we could have 27 squads of paratroopers, about 30 assault value. I think actually that's what we're going to do. We're going to send them to Lord Howe Island. So I'll reconsider that. But they're probably still a day or two away by train from Sydney, and when they arrive, we'll form them into the Kanga Force Battalion. So we'll wait on that. Carriers are at Hobart. Meanwhile, I've kept the task forces together because I don't want to have to spend the political points again to assign Spruance and Halsey, which is kind of a silly way the game works. But currently, they're sitting in command of some cruisers that are currently in port here. One of the task forces is docked, the other is not. The port's not large enough to support them both. Meanwhile, the carriers are currently in the roadstead, if you will. The port is big enough to prevent Japanese submarines from being able to go there. They have to be level 3 port. It's a level 4. But it doesn't have any dockyards or repair facilities, so they've kind of just got to repair themselves. Think not quite as dramatic as Master and Commander Far Side of the World, where they remast their ship in like a random small cove with no life on it. But something like that. They're doing a little bit of repairs, and then I can add carriers back to both those task forces that I currently have sitting there. I just have to transfer or change the type of task force they are. I'm not going to do it right now, Co. I will do it prior to switching them back over, but the carriers are deliberately in port here so they can repair. None of them have permanent engine or flood damage. They just have some system damage, which is basically basic wear and tear. So frankly, they can probably repair that stuff just sitting in port, not needing a repair yard or anything like that. So they're going to be here a few days. I don't know if we'll wait 8 days to get them fully repaired, but if we get their system damage down to 1 or 2, that'll be good. One other thing I did do as well is the Indomitable is currently under its pier side, which means it's turned off. So that's only going to take 4 days to get it back up to 0. But I resized the 880th fighter squadron here. Previously, they only had 6 Hurricanes with 3 in reserve, but it allowed me to resize this squadron to 18 aircraft. So we've got 9 already assigned to it. We can take 9 more out of the pool, not at this base, but if we get back to Melbourne or Perth, they can pull 9 more out of the pool, and then we can have 18 frontline fighters on this British carrier, which is a big flippin' deal. British carriers are way under strength in terms of their fighter strength, so to have 18 Sea Hurricanes that are in a fighter group on the carrier is going to be huge for our ability to shoot down incoming Japanese fighters and bombers and things like that. If only because the Hurricane has the ability to fly up to 32,000 feet, actually 34,000 feet, so it can dive on Japanese Zeros that might be escorting bombers in. So that's going to be huge. Spruance isn't super expensive, but Halsey I feel like is. It's just a waste. You only get 50 political points per turn. So the fact that I just don't want to be spending 10% of my daily political points reassigning someone, I'll just keep them in a task force in Harbor. So here we've got these Sea Hurricanes. So we're going to have 18 modern fighters plus 9 Fulmars. I may change the Fulmars to Sea Hurricanes as well, but I don't have the aircraft to do it all right now, so I'd rather have it concentrated in one really good fighter wing. And the Fulmars have better range, so they can act as bullet sponges, as escorts perhaps, for our Albacores on strike missions. In any event, that also will bring us up to the full strength of the carrier, which is 45 aircraft is the maximum amount of planes that can go on these carriers. So I can get to that number when I equip this group with Sea Hurricanes. So that's good. Yeah. Okay, so we're repairing those groups down at Hobart. Meanwhile, we have a bunch of oil, about 17,000 oiler on 2 oilers that are arriving here tomorrow. So they'll be arriving. That 17,000 should be sufficient, I think, to replenish our task force's fuel. We did pull 4,500 out of the port at Hobart with our cruisers and whatnot, so they did get back up a little bit of their a little bit of their fuel here. Some of these guys are still in the 60s, but some of them got up to 100% when they pulled the fuel out of the harbor. 17,000 should be enough though to get everybody back up to full complement of fuel oil, if you will. Meanwhile, if we move east, Raoul Island, we almost have the entire New Zealand engineering unit unloaded here. There's 120 equipment more going, a little bit more supplies, but the second RNZAF base force is almost entirely unloaded, and they're working much more quickly now to turn this into an actual base. It will get a flag when it gets a base level up to 1. It's working on the airfield. The airfield is the primary purpose of RAL because it's going to be there for transferring aircraft from New Zealand up into the Fiji and Pago Pago or Samoa and Fiji island groups to assist our defense here. We're unloading some anti-aircraft defenses here at Palmyra and at Christmas Island. So we're unloading different anti-aircraft units here to strengthen these islands up in the event that he brings, the carrier battle groups or other guys in and around the area to sort of play havoc. Additionally, I don't think I've shown this to you guys yet, but we do have a small landing force on the way to Baker. I didn't really talk about it because I was a little bit nervous. I was either going to send him to Baker or I was going to send him to Via Tapu. Via Tapu, we have recon over, so we know that it's not occupied. Baker Island, I got recon over last turn from my heavy cruiser, so I used the VC. I basically used my float planes on the USS San Francisco to check if there's any Japanese troops on Baker, and it looks like there are none here. So rather than send these guys all the way down to Via Tapu to land in behind the Ellis Islands, I'm going to land them at Baker Island this next turn and take the island there in his rear, and then he'll have, these guys will be a little bit cut off, but really the intent is to get some float planes operating out of Baker. We could have sent them up to Howland as well, but the intent is to get some float planes out of Baker so that we can see better what's going in at Tarawa, at Ocean Island, at Funafoti. It does look like he has 3 units here based on a recon out of Pago or Suva. So he's got a moderate-sized force here. He may be building up the airfield here, although it's a bad base to try and build an airfield. There's no stackable Air Force units there. Could just be a float plane base. But if we can get some recon in at Baker and fly some Catalinas out of here, that would be great. So again, very small landing force, a couple hundred men that are landing at Baker tomorrow, and then we'll hopefully take that right back from the Japanese. And who knows, maybe we'll trigger a response from them. The cruisers that ran out of fuel near, it's just one cruiser that ran out of fuel. It's just the Sumatra, I think it is, which has to withdraw soon anyway, so whatever. Who cares about her? She's a Dutch cruiser, the Sumatra. The other guys still have a little bit of fuel, but they are going with it. They can't do underway replenishment, I guess, because their fuel loads are too low. But we do have another cruiser task force that's headed down here. I think they'll arrive here next turn, so they should be in the same hex so they can pull the fuel out and then get up to Colombo. Meanwhile, the 7th Australian Infantry Division is fully unloaded at Colombo, and so they're setting up shop at Colombo as well. We also have some other units here that are on their way to Australia somewhere. We've got 7,000 troops here and some supply that's on its way to Australia. Some of these are air groups, so we've got the 224 RAF group. Actually, it's a base force group that's on the way down to Australia to increase the amount of aviation support. We've got the number 11 RAF squadron here of some Blenheim 4s that are also on their way up to down to Australia. We've got some field artillery units. We've got Australian First Corps engineer units. We've got Pioneer infantry units, all on their way down to Australia to reinforce there. I did debate diverting the Pioneer troops to the Cuscos Islands to try and get a garrison here, but unfortunately the task force is in transport mode, not in amphibious mode, so they can only unload these guys really if they have a place they can dock, and the docks here are limited to 6,000 tons, and so I'm assuming that the 1st Pioneer Battalion is on ship. Well, actually, this ship only has 4,900 tons, so you say. It's a pretty decent unit here. 2nd, 1st, it's an infantry battalion. What's the other unit here? 4,900. 4,900. So I could load those guys. Maybe I should do that. Are all these guys on 4,900 size ships? I mean, it's just a small garrison, but it would prevent him from landing like a fraction of an SNLF force. Where does a Dutch ship withdraw to in 1942? Good question, Charcoal. Good question. All right, so we're going to take the Rona, the Candelia, and the Khedive Ismail in a new task force. They'll be carrying the 2nd AIF Pioneer Battalion. So they'll have some engineers with them as well, so they should be able to build up their own forts. They have a little bit of supply. We'll have to send a little bit more. But we're going to land them over at the Coscos Islands to reinforce there. I should probably reinforce Diego Garcia and Adu as well. I don't really have any infantry units to do that with right at this moment. The other guys are mostly just engineers and RAF groups, which I think will still be useful in Australia. I do have a bunch of American troops coming the long way down toward Cape Town, which I could send some of the lighter units there to some of those islands. Like this infantry unit here, an element of the 102nd Infantry Regiment, or some of these Wake Island infantry detachments or Marine Defense Forces. We could send them into Diego Garcia, but they're probably still a month away from arriving. But I got to make sure that he doesn't get in along my supply line. That might be a bit of an overreach for him at this point, but who knows? I'm not sure, Korabo. I'm not sure if it changes the flag for him as well. It probably does. One other thing that we're doing as well is we're sending a AFV up to Listen Island, which may be foolish. We may get it sunk, but it's going to be within like 8 hexes of Midway, and we're not going to build an airfield here. It's an atoll. It doesn't have a port level. It doesn't even have an airfield level at Leysen. But my intention is to base PBY Catalinas out of both the French frigate Shoal and the Leysen Island with some AVDs, and then we can get some recon over Midway and then extend our recon a little bit further north of Pearl to get a little bit better sight on what's going in and around in this area and perhaps help in our ASW efforts. So we're trying to push a small detachment of PBYs up to these 2 islands, and then we're going to try and push a small detachment of PBYs out to Baker Island. And then we're also going to see about pushing some PBYs out to Wallis Island. We've got a AVP on the way up here for float planes out of Wallis Island to try and give us better recon from Baker Island, sort of in and around here, and then from Wallis Island in and around the Ellice and Sydney Islands. We can also hit those areas from Baker, and then hopefully we can use Fiji to continue pressing west as well. B-17s in Charterstowns continue to train and whatnot. We did equip the 50th Recon Squadron of the 11th Bomber Group with B-17Es. Previously, they had B-17Ds. That did add 1 B-17D to the pool. It actually is going to add, I think, 5 B-17Ds to the pool. That, like the 31st Bomber Squadron or the 23rd Bomber Squadron, both of which are still using the older version of the B-17, will be able to fly. All of those pilots are working on training. So if we take a look at the pilots, you can see they're learning low altitude bombing or low altitude naval strikes. You can see here the green represents that their skill went up last turn based off of training. The orange means it's gone up recently. I'm not sure how recently, maybe 2 turns ago or maybe a week ago. I'm not sure. That's the situation there. Meanwhile, we're getting pretty close. I found another infantry division we can unlock. The 27th Infantry Division is currently locked to the west coast, but it actually only needs 1,600 points to change its headquarters. That's because we turned its replacements off, and it currently only has 200 infantry squads, but it does hold up to 273. So the fact is, however, it only bases what your expense is to unlock a unit based on its current size. That's why a smart allied player would have done what I didn't do early in the war and immediately turn all their replacements off And then that way they can one, keep more replacements in their pools, but two, it allows them to keep some of these units that don't start the war at full strength under full strength to make them cheaper to change their headquarters. But the 27th Infantry Division, only about 1,600 assault value or political points to change its headquarter. That means we need about 300, a little bit more. So we basically need about 7 days more worth of political points, assuming we don't spend on anything else, which isn't exactly a perfect assumption. But about 7 more days and we can unlock the 27th Infantry Division. We also were looking at unlocking the 41st Infantry Division here, but they're a bit more at 1,948 points. They're more expensive because, as you can see here, they have 73 more squads currently in their unit. But it's actually almost, I think it's an identical division to the 27th. It just isn't fully filled up with troops yet. And then there's another division down here, not the 40th, I don't think. Yeah, it is the 40th, which is actually 2,300 points, which has the same amount of infantry, but I think it has more I think some of its other units it has more. I think it has more like field artillery. You can see it has 36, actually it's a total of 72 105mm howitzers, both M2 and 3 variants. It looks like if we look at the TOE, it isn't even supposed to have the Mark III 105mm howitzers. I don't know how the game makes the decision to have it, but it's got 20 or 36 extra field guns there. So this is a much more expensive one to unlock, although obviously its combat capabilities are greater. I'd rather have a division in 7 days than a division in 30 days. So we'll look at that. Meanwhile, a lot of pilot training and other things like that going on. Some logistics are going on. We're transporting ships and aircraft and all those other things all over the map. Another turn of no bombing our ships in Rangoon is another good turn. I am standing down some of our planes here, so some of our fighters are getting a little bit too high for comfort in terms of their fatigue levels. So the 242, the 135 squadrons, that's all 31 Hurricanes here have 13 fatigue. So I'm actually standing these guys down this turn in order to fill the gap of those 32 aircrafts on combat air patrol. Well, I guess it was 70% of them, so closer to, I don't know, 20-something. I'm going to turn on the 17th RAF Squadron at 100% long-range cap from a hex away to fill the gap there, so we'll only be short 16, or I guess closer to 12 aircraft compared to last turn, while these guys rest for a day. And then we'll get these guys back up in the air after a day off. Also, good news is cap patrols helps their experience and their air skills, so you can see their experience going up a little bit as well. So that makes them better pilots. So that's the situation there. They're getting higher fatigue than the American pilots because they're flying at a higher altitude. Yeah, let's take a look at the Dutch sub here in a moment. But one other thing is these ships are continuing to unload supplies. So 27,000 supplies are remaining on these cargo ships that can't dock because there's no room in the port. And then 26,000 are on this other task force here that is currently docked. 46,000 tons currently docked. You can see here they're about halfway unloaded. So they've unloaded about 20,000 more supply last turn. Rangoon supply situation, 94,000 supply currently in Rangoon, so a very healthy supply amount. Pegu is about 15,000. That's down about 5,000 from last turn. As we push some of these infantry divisions forward, we pulled about 2,000 supply into the hex shy of Mulman. So you can see here we've got about 900 assault value at Mulman between these 3 divisions, or 2 divisions and 1 brigade. And so they're sitting there. We also did pull back the BFF brigade, so we're trying to rest it up. It has 53 squads currently disabled. So we're working on getting those taken care of. Oh, this is the commander I switched, I think. Lieutenant Commander Macklin, because he's the best administrative commander. So even though he's commanding a brigade as only a lieutenant colonel, his 66 admin should help them recover their skills very well, very quickly. He's also the best land commander. He's the best administrator. He's the most aggressive commander. He's the best. He's one of the 3 best leaders. He's not very inspirational, but he's a very efficient bureaucrat. So we're hopefully getting these guys back up. They'll get another 53 assault value if these squads get brought back into service. We also haven't talked about China at all. So we did bomb these Japanese troops. That we can see this little dot here indicates at least some of them are moving west. All of these troops of ours are moving south to Guilin. to get out of there as quickly as possible. So you can see these guys are on the march. The Cavalry Corps covered 30 miles. They should be at Quilin tomorrow. The other two corps, the 6th and 14th, traveled 22 and 25 miles respectively, which means they'll be very close depending on how quickly they march. They'll either be in Quilin tomorrow or the day after, which should prevent him from being able to attack us at all near northeast of Quilin. It should allow us to fall back to Quilin successfully. That should also that'll get us in with the 441 assault value of the 66th Chinese Corps, which is already there, as well as the 2nd Provisional Chinese Corps, which is also already here. So you can see here we should be, I wonder if these guys, does the Provisional Corps get American equipment? They get howitzers, 105 millimeter howitzers. I think that's American. 81 millimeter mortar should be as well. So let's turn the replacements on, because they're on the front lines, obviously. They'll set to Quilin. I mean, all these guys should be set to Quilin. That's a mistake on my part. So not good experience, not good preparations for any of the defenders there. But the 440 assault value combined with the 203 of the Chinese corps should be almost double of what these two corps had before they got shot to pieces. The 14th Chinese Corps is going to pull all the way back to Tuyin to get into the rear to try and get these units recovered. But we have another 1,000 almost assault, actually more than 1,000 assault value coming down in the 79th, 99th, and 53rd Chinese Corps, which are all marching south. But they're probably going to take 5 or 6 days to arrive. So that's another important reason why we bomb these guys, to slow them down. If they take 6 days to get to Quilin because they can only march like 10 miles a day or something like that, then that means these guys should arrive in time so that they run into a much stronger force than what they beat up to the northeast of Quilin. They are people, for fuck's sake. Forgotten and betrayed and still fighting. Are we talking about the folks at Bataan? Bataan's still in our control. We have 14,000 supply here. No supply problems in Bataan yet, as of late March. Everybody's fully supplied. We've got enough supply here for probably at least 1 month before supplies become an issue. So we should be able to get into late April before things start to become problematic. Hey, Pistolub, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Okay, what else? So the situation in near Cyan. He's still just got the 2 brigades, or what we think are 2 brigades, to the east of Cyan. We've got our troops here with about 1,300 assault value dug in good defensive terrain. Meanwhile, it doesn't look like we see any reserves coming up to the south of Cyan yet, where we've got about 2,100 assault value. Supplies are a little bit of a challenge here for us in rough terrain. We've got troops east of Cyan as well that are along this rail line. I intend to stick these guys here and just have them dig in. I'm also trying to drop this Chinese corps. I'm going to try and drop them in behind these two Japanese brigades and cut their supply off. Then maybe we can destroy these guys, so it would be great. And it doesn't seem like there's no indication these troops are moving or these troops are moving. So we don't see any indication that like a Yunnan flanking maneuver or Paotao flanking maneuver are underway to try and get in around behind Cyan. Certainly is possible, but nothing that we're seeing any indication for yet. Meanwhile, my biggest fear at this moment is that he makes a landing at Ankan behind Anking, behind 1,200 assault value of our own troops over here, which are moving some troops south here to try and get back to this base, which is unoccupied. We're also moving the 95th Chinese Corps here, but it's probably going to take a week to move those 2 hexes given the nature of the roadways. We are currently flying capped by the Flying Tigers over Anking. And then we also are moving troops up to Tisu and Kungchang as well. But in theory, he could drop paratroopers behind our lines, and that would be very problematic. We have addressed the issue of paratroopers at Suyong, or at least we will have it addressed in the next couple of days. So I was worried also he might send paratroopers here to cut the Burma Road. It is a possibility. But we are moving an element of a corps north here, so they should be there in 2 or 3 days. Meanwhile, the 54th, other element of the 54th Corps will be arriving in Kunming, which only opened up this turn, so he never would have known about it till this turn. They look like they should arrive tomorrow. And then we are looking at moving some elements of the 5th Chinese Corps into Mandalay to reinforce our position in Burma, but we're not there quite yet either. So I think that's about all we've got for you guys. The Repulse is less than 50 days away from being repaired, so that's good news. So if we take a look at the Prince of Wales and the Repulse, we can see the Prince of Wales is under 300 days repair time, 276 days. I can't remember what it was last time we looked. Meanwhile, the Repulse, almost all of its float damage is repaired. Almost all of its engine damage is repaired. Still has a fair amount of system damage, but the Repulse should be done in less than 2 months, in 49 days. So by the time we get to May, we'll be looking at getting the Repulse back, a nice battle cruiser to operate with our carriers. Yep, Repulse and Prince of Wales did not get sunk. They got pretty badly shot up by Japanese destroyers, so I decided to pull them south rather than the historical movement here. And so they hung out sort of south of Singapore, and we saw Japanese landing force coming in toward Mersing. We sprinted them north, which we pulled the American Asiatic Squadron out of Manila and put them with these guys. So it was like a heavy cruiser battleship engagement near Mersing. Our torpedo bombers, our Wildebeest, actually sank the Japanese battleship Haruna and put a bomb into the, I think it was a bomb, into the battleship Congo. And then we sent our battleships forward as well at the same time to try and finish them off and to destroy the landing force. They ran into a Japanese destroyer formation in the middle of the night that put 3 torpedoes into the Prince of Wales and 1 or 2 into the Repulse. So then those ships had to pull back. Our heavy cruisers engaged and finished off the Haruna, which had taken 4 torpedoes from our Wildebeest but hadn't actually sunk yet. So our heavy cruisers finished off the Haruna, but we lost the USS Houston in the exchange. It was a pretty big battle in and around Mersing. And then we pulled out the Repulse and the Prince of Wales. We actually hid them at Singapore. They were under constant Japanese bombing attack at Singapore, but we had a much better fighter set up there, so we were able to keep them somewhat safe. They did emergency repairs in Singapore for like 2 or 3 days, and then we snuck them out past Japanese submarines that were laying in wait toward Batavia, and then we limped them back to Colombo. It was very exciting. We haven't had a lot of that kind of chess match stuff lately, but it was very exciting in the first week of the war or so. What email verse? It's play by email. I am Whippets. So essentially, this is a turn-based game. So when I hit end turn, it's going to generate a save file that then I have to email to XTRG. It's a very old style of play. It's a 10-plus-year-old game, but you play World War II 1 day at a time. So this is incredibly detailed and not a game for everybody, but it's a lot of fun. And that's what we're trying to do. No, the Prince of Wales is not back in action yet, so she did take 4 torpedoes. She had like 80 float damage. She was almost sinking. We barely got her out, so she is currently being repaired at Cape Town and under high priority, but she's still almost a year away, I guess 2/3 of a year away from coming back to action. She'll be out of action for 276 days. Meanwhile, the Repulse, which was not hurt as badly, should be back in about a month and a half. We also didn't lose any American battleships at Pearl Harbor. XTRG had never played the game before, so he sent his fighters in on the deck, and they lost a lot of... He didn't have a good Pearl Harbor. He did a lot of damage, but he didn't sink any ships. So, like, the California and the Tennessee are still going to be out of action for almost a year, but the Oklahoma is almost back. Our other battleships here, a bunch of other battleships over here are in pretty good shape. They're all at sea. So that's the situation there. I may pull these guys back. They're already into Baker. There's no reason to send them there. That's just risky. We'll just pull them back to Pearl. The landing force will get there before the battleships do anyway. Maybe we should have him hang out here for a turn, just in case. He doesn't have any detection over these guys, right? He doesn't have any detection over any of these guys. Oh, he does have it over the cruisers, 7 out of 10, but not over the landing force. So hopefully the landing catches him by surprise. I don't know where that French minesweeper is. Ship here? Oh, that's the Ipswich. Our French minesweeper that engaged a Japanese invasion force at Comac near New Caledonia? I don't know if she eventually got sunk or not. I can't remember. Can't really remember. You can play versus the computer, Whippets. It is an option in the game. But I think that's it, guys. I think that's all we've got for today. I guess we'll just take a quick look at the intel. According to the last turn, we lost 1 aircraft air-to-air, 6 operational. He lost 3. So he obviously lost a lot fewer aircraft, 7 to 5, I guess, this last turn. He lost 2 Sonias to flak, 2 Oscars to ops. We lost 2 Blenheim 4s to ops, probably flying supplies into China. He lost a KI-15 Babs. We lost a Wearaway, a DO-24K, and a Hudson, a Hawk, and then an H-84. The DO-24 was lost air-to-air. Maybe they were flying into Singapore at the same time a raid was coming in. I'm not sure where they would have been lost. In terms of ship availability tomorrow or in the coming days, so we can take a look here. We've got some troop transports, the Emperor Pride coming in, 2 ACMs, a minesweeper is also coming in tomorrow. We've got some destroyers coming in about 2 weeks. I think we have another British carrier. We've got the Devonshire coming in 26 days, the Atlanta 26 days. Okay. We have 3 PT boats available, by the way. Meanwhile, in terms of ship withdrawal, I don't think there's anything soon. Withdrawal schedule has the Enquintia in 64 days, and then the Colombo in 77 days. The group withdrawal for aircraft, so we've got, these are ground unit withdrawal, sorry. So convoys are going to pull out of Cape Town tomorrow, or in 2 days. I think that's when TB4 comes along, which gives us some Grant Light tanks, which will be good for the pools, and some Matildas, which can outfit some of the British tank units in Burma. AVG ground echelon also is due out in 20 or 42 days. Interestingly enough, what's the penalty if we keep him? It doesn't tell me. I did ship withdraw. Where's group? Group withdraw. So group withdraw in 21 days. We've got 2 Hurricane squadrons currently based in Rangoon, and we also have 8 B-17s that are flying transport supplies into China out of Lido that are due in 42 days. Then we've got Warhawks and Aerocobras in Rangoon due in 47 days. Ground unit destroyed. What can we... So it looks like we could raise a Zuid Kanile battalion, but I don't know if that'd be a good idea to spend money on new Dutch troops at this time. And it doesn't look like we'd have much in the way of current troops in the pool to help raise like the FMSV battalion or anything like that. They're Malayan squads, by the way, as well. Huh. They were destroyed near Kota Baru. 3rd Cavalry Regiment would also be a nice unit, but we don't have any units in the pool to help with them. 3rd Indian Corps. Okay. So we can take a look at troop pools, I guess. Take out factory and manufacturing. Squads, and then filter out the Soviets. So you can see here we've got a bunch of naval support in the pool, a bunch of engineers in the pool. So many engineers in the pool. That is nice. Meanwhile, apparently we have 714 Chinese rifle squads in the pool. So we've got a couple of units that have turned replacements on in China to try and start filling them out. A bunch of support is also there. And then motorized support as well. All those units are shared between the different units, by the way. Fair amount of 50 caliber anti-aircraft machine guns, but they're not really effective against anti-air. Sound detectors, engineer vehicles, Chinese rifle squads, or cavalry squads, 75 millimeter field guns, and then some Filipino infantry or army rifle squads, some light armored cars, New Zealand militia, 155 millimeter US M1 howitzers, U.S. Heavy machine guns, more sound detectors, more 50 cals. Apparently we've got 50 M7 Priest self-propelled artillery units. We don't actually have... We've got a build rate of 12, but we got 50 in the pool, or maybe they're not available yet because they're gray, so they're still R&D. Some artillery's coming. Canadian militia 34 squads. Canadian infantry is 33 squads. So one thing we could actually do to get the Canadians in the war a little bit more is I did rail the... where are these guys? I did rail the Rocky Mountain Ranger Battalion south, which is a Canadian infantry unit here, and it currently has 36 Canadian militia squads, but once we get 36 regular squads of troops, I'd love to replace the militias with regular troops. They're much better in combat, and then we could send these guys to some island somewhere to fight on behalf of the Allies, so that would be nice. Meanwhile, that Dutch sub that took a few depth charges, I did forget about them, but I remembered now. They had a minor amount of system damage, 6 system, 3 float, so not great damage, but oh well. I think they can still continue fighting for now. Their captain is moderately aggressive, 58. So Van Brugge will stick out there. Meanwhile, we've lost sight of those Japanese ships, as I said, that we thought might be coming towards Semarang. At least some ships are at Bandarjasman moving northeast, so maybe that's the task force up here. They could be in here, but I've got a bunch of ships around here, so I don't think they're within... I think we might have one more day before they land, depending on their speed. I'm not sure if they're here that they can cover 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and land. If they land, it'll be at the very end of the day, and they won't unload much. So I'm guessing we've got at least one more day before they land. Best way for the Canadians to get involved is to replace the Mounties with regulars. I'm still salty about that. I did replace Mounties with regulars with some of our garrison units. Would have been really nice if I hadn't spent those 60 squads or so on doing that. Because we have a Canadian brigade actually on Christmas Island down here, 108 squads, but they're all militia, so they're not very. And the militia squads are not very good in combat. This could have been a really nice squad or a really nice unit too if we had regulars. So I'm kind of torn on whether I want to save up for like another 6 months to get these guys 108 regular infantry squads, or whether we want to get the Rocky Mountain troops involved. We could send them down to Palmyra. Palmyra is a really important base for the Japanese in terms of victory points, so he could definitely strike at it. One of the reasons I'm landing at Baker Island is I'm hoping... We saw he had a Japanese carrier raid down near Palmyra and down near Christmas Island, and so I'm really hoping that if he was planning on going for the Line Islands, taking Baker will prevent him from doing that. He'll think to land on Baker before he extends back out to the Line Islands. So that carrier raid kind of spooked me and said, listen, if I can put a tripwire in here somewhere that might undermine his thinking and cause him to go for that rather than going for the islands I really don't want to lose out here. Because if we lose these islands, it upsets... our supply situation is always already rough with all the bases we've lost to Australia, but if we lose these bases, then we've got to push supply convoys even further east to be safe. And so I think holding these islands is really important. I don't know for sure that he wants to go at them, but they do have a fair amount of victory points that he can get for taking Palmyra especially. So in any event, guys, I think that's going to do it for tonight. I appreciate you guys coming out. Just a lot of me talking. Not a lot happened in this episode, but still hope you enjoyed coming out. Hopefully he doesn't launch another attack on Singapore. We'll see if Singapore holds out for a little bit longer, but that supply keeps getting reduced. He didn't bomb Singapore this turn, which is interesting, so I don't think he bombed it anyway. So actually what that probably means is I'm going to guess tomorrow we're going to get a deliberate attack. He's going to go max effort with his bombers in Singapore tomorrow. Since he didn't bomb today, he probably was letting him rest today. So he'll probably go max effort with his bombers tomorrow and go for an attack at Singapore. If he goes with a shock attack, I think he'll overwhelm us and take the base. But if he goes with a deliberate attack, we might be able to hold out for one more attack. So we'll see. Either March 21st will be the last day of Singapore, or we may have a few more days, but we'll see. I trust XTRG. DeSantos, I don't think... It's really hard to read your text, by the way, on a black screen, but I don't think XTRG watches my videos and plans accordingly. We've caught him by surprise too many times for that to be the case. But in any event, guys, I hope that you did enjoy the stream. Thanks for coming out yet again. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer. That Munich night, thank you very much for the follow, by the way. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, And until next time, I'm out.